Hi, everyone. Welcome back to AHRK Encounter. I'm your host, Maha, and I'm so excited to walk on this AHRK path with you. Today, we have a special VIP, a gifted speaker, and he's going to share with us how he encounters overcoming obstacles through the lens of communication. And of course, with our wonderful guide, Bernard Bashura. I've heard amazing things about our guest today, so I'm excited for you to hear it out. Let's begin our AHRK Encounter journey with this video.
Lifestyle path to better choices. It empowers us to live life to the fullest and paves the way for people like you and me to discover our unique purpose and passion. Choosing to walk the AHRK path invites transformation and growth in 5 key areas of life: leadership, communication, mindset, community, and lifestyle. As we dive into these lenses, they redirect our focus and guide us into a deeper understanding of where we're at today and where we're going tomorrow. This is AHRK Encounter. Welcome to the AHRK Path.
Welcome to the AHRK Encounter. My name is Bernard Bashura, and today we're going to be talking about overcoming obstacles through a lens of communication. Communication is those topics that I find most challenging for people. It's not something that we meditate on. It's not something that we touch very often. But for those that live in that space, it's essential. And that's what we're here about. We're here to explore and hear from someone that not only lives in that space, but loves it. And so welcome, Craig Lawrence.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, thank you. So Craig is a friend. He's a senior pastor to New Life Church, and he's a overcomer. That's why you're invited into this conversation, because you've lived a lifetime of overcoming obstacles, and actually you give it away. Your lens of communication is critical. But let's start with talking about what did your early journey in recognizing obstacles in your life.
Yeah, really looking back, I think all of us in our childhood are told so many different things and we get locked in, and many of those become obstacles. And I don't think parents purpose it. I think a lot of times it just happens directly or indirectly. And without realizing it, how the brain works and the neuroscience of it all, we get locked in. And it's really hard to change those, but you can. But you have to be intentional about not only the communication that you've had, but how then that affects you and how it affects every relationship that you're in.
I love that. And this is something that you recognize early on in your life, that there was pain and there was obstacles. And from what I know, you joined the Marine Corps, and that was to run into pain and to run from pain. But I'd love to hear a little bit more about that.
Yeah, I look back and think one of the main reasons I joined the Marine Corps was to try to get away from it all. Life was, great in some ways, but really not great in other ways. Still searching for identity, looking to figure out who I was and how do I get there. And one of my friends was a Marine, and so I don't know if I should hug him or hit him, but he helped me get in. But ended up going to Okinawa, Japan, and Christianity got introduced. I grew up right here in Southern California. And crazy to think you could grow up in America and not have a clue about Christianity.
Yeah.
Or my perception was really boring, really judgmental, really something I didn't want to be a part of, and found something completely different on the other side of the world.
Yeah. But again, you're talking, there's an acknowledgement that there were some obstacles in your life. There was some issues that you just didn't know what they were. How do you start that journey? Where did that journey start? Because again, you started off by talking about where our brain gets hardwired early on in life. But at some point you recognize that, wait a minute, I'm encountering something that is it's not supposed to be there. And that's kind of that early journey into recognizing what obstacles are and overcoming them. So
yeah, for me, the last 15 years has been a journey of emotional and mental health. Again, something in the Christian world we don't talk a lot about, but the Bible does. And we get locked in and we have identity crisis every day, but then there's this war. We're taught as leaders in the body of Christ, we don't share those things. We don't talk about our struggles. I was taught, like, just be quiet, just be a good example, and go out there and just love those kids as a youth pastor, do what you're supposed to do. Wow. And 15 years ago, God flipped the script on. A friend of mine handed me a book that was called Emotionally Healthy Church, and it just wrecked me because I realized how dysfunctional I already knew I was, but it just got me to the core of the reality of things that we don't talk about. And so that started a new journey for me, and being honest in communication and telling the truth about it.
Wow. And that's that communication lens. You had to first receive it. It was, we talk about, again, you do this for a living. You communicate hope, you communicate healing to people. But there came a time in your life where you go, wait a minute, I needed to hear, I needed to be mentored in this. And that's kind of that acknowledgement. That's kind of getting on the AHRK path is the first step to healing is acknowledge. You got to recognize that there's something that's not supposed to be there. And you recognize that. And that kind of led you into the next part of your life, which is you had to heal what was bothering you. What was that journey of healing?
Yeah, still on it. I mean, to be honest, it's never done. And so it is a slow, exciting and challenging process all at one time. And especially in the Christian world, because we don't want it to be that way. We don't want to act like we have problems. We want to act like, oh, you become a Christian, everything's great. You're just all good. And that was my first 15 years, overcoming that indirect communication mostly, and sometimes direct communication. Took me a while to start to rewire and realize that, we can change our thinking, but you have to be intentional. You have to think about what you're thinking about. And as you said, Bernard, getting honest, it is hard. It should be the number one thing, especially as Christians. Like, we should be the most honest people in the world. And yet most of my non-Christian friends think we're the most plastic, fake people in the world. And so coming to grips with those things in these last few years, dealing with marriage and kids and issues and staff and people, and going, wow, there's a lot of growth that needs to happen.
Yeah, it's not perfect. And that's kind of that's the beauty of overcoming obstacles, is that at every step we uncover something new. We get put in a situation where we have to, it tests who we are. And so what I know about you is that you're a VIP. And what we talk about VIP being is someone that knows their values, understands their identity, and lives into their purpose. And that's what I've seen you in our time together. I've seen you live into this VIP because it's something that you carry with you. It starts in you, but it carries within everything that you do. And as you're talking about healing, I see healing as part of it. There's a core value system that you have that has helped you in healing. And I'd love to hear more about your values and healing.
Yeah, the process for me is, again, as Jesus came into my life, that changed everything for me. The highest value is truth and love. And yet, one of my biggest struggles in this last season is getting brutally honest about years of training and development, we weren't being honest. We weren't being truthful. And so crossing those bridges, I can now take that everywhere I go and just be brutally honest without being harsh about it, but just like, hey, when are we going to tell the truth? Yeah. Like, we are not different than anybody else in the sense that we all have struggles. We all have those pains. But if we can, apply the truth that we know, the values that we know, Jesus at the center of it for me, he is love. He's not about love. He's actually love. So then I'm supposed to represent that. And I can't do that if I'm not truthful. And so telling the truth about it, many conversations you and I've had, it's not easy. Like, even in the culture still today, it's like people kind of look at you like, you're a pastor? Like, you're not supposed to talk about your struggles like that. I'm like, yeah, that's been a major problem. So we should change that.
Love that. Love that. And really, it's that communication is you have to receive it. And you've had a lot of people mentor you in being open and honest with yourself. And I know in your journey, you talked a lot about how that conversations that they've had with you allowed you to take that back out to people. You kind of found that comfort zone. And that's kind of the healing that we're talking about. On the AHRK path, we really go, acknowledge, heal, restore, kingdom, and to get us really into that kingdom area of our lives. But restoration is important. And as you talk about, well, I'm not there, but what I've seen you is live into that restoration where you're comfortable with talking about it. Yeah. So what is that about? I mean, it's not easy, but yet you're comfortable in talking about it, and it kind of almost helps you communicating. It helps you be at peace more and more every day that I've seen it.
Yeah, it's the irony of it for me is learning over these last 10 plus years to start talking about those things. So even in international travel, as you go, and I don't care if you're talking to a national leader that has thousands of churches or a pastor in the middle of a jungle, when you start talking honestly and you start sharing your own struggles, I can't remember a time that I wasn't pulled off to the side like, hey, come here a minute. Can I talk to you? Can I tell you we have problems here? I go, I know. That's what we have to stop pretending that because we're Christian, we don't have problems. And learning to communicate that to people, I'm seeing there's a whole new wave of honesty and opportunity that I hadn't seen in 20 plus years in Christianity. And I believe if we could just keep doing it, at our church, we're watching a generation of 18 to 30 something year olds. And when they have a freedom to talk about all their stuff, all their addictions, all the porn, all the stuff that they struggle with that we don't even want to say the words, all of a sudden there's a new freedom. You're going to love me even in the midst of my pain. I'm like, yeah, because I'm working through stuff myself, so we can do it together.
Love that. Love that. And you've overcome enough obstacles to know in your life that there is hope in where we're at in our situation. And I know because you demonstrate that, you live that, and you communicate that every day. And I think that's one of the things that I love about the hope that you put out there is the courage, the strength of showing how you've been restored, and you keep getting restored, as you kind of talked about. It just kind of jumps us into the kingdom. So on the ARC path, that's our goal, is that we need to live this kingdom reality in every part of our life. And a lot of people think that's just a Christian concept. Well, guess what? It's without having peace in every part of your life, life doesn't work.
Sure.
And communicating that is so critical. So how do you communicate that kingdom, that peace that you encounter as you live life, as you experience life?
Yeah, I think it just comes out of who we are, right? I think no matter who you are, at some point, what is ever in you comes out, right? So John Maxwell said, we teach what we know, but we reproduce what we are. And, if we get brutally honest, what we reproduce sometimes isn't exactly what we read. And that needs to change. And being brutally honest about that is part of how now I'm watching lives transformed by the reality that my life is getting better. It is changing, and it's not there yet. I'm definitely got, struggles. I joke at church a lot. I'm like, yeah, if you want to know the truth, ask my wife. She'll tell you the real story. Yeah. And my kids. And yet, I'm not where I was a year ago or 5 years ago. And so helping people to get to that place of recognition, as you said earlier, I think it's the first step. It's like, can I be honest about where I am?
Yeah, I love that. And you really walk in that space of communicating that out. And it's funny. I tell people I have the best pastor. He's not perfect. And it's kind of funny because you go, well, wait a minute. If he's the pastor, shouldn't he be perfect? And the reality is that honesty, that truth makes that kind of where you live life makes you so easy to connect with. And that's what we all need to be. I think as you've encouraged me to be more honest, more open in my life, and that's hence where we're doing the AHRK Encounters, is just really that courage to stand on stage in the spotlight and go, hey, I'm not perfect. Ask my wife. Well, wait a minute. My wife will say I'm perfect.
We need to work with her.
I know. Well, and that's that kingdom space, is that we do need to continue to recognize the obstacles in our lives. We need to work towards overcoming them. But again, communicating that it is doable and there's a safe space to do that in. So thank you, Craig, for being with us. Love this. So thank you, folks, for tuning in. We hope you enjoyed the AHRK Encounter, because that's what it's about. It's about finding newness, finding new people on how they live life differently than you do, but where they found ways to really walk into that kingdom space of peace, love, and joy. And so if you want to know more, join us on the ARC path, and here Maha is going to tell you more about how you get more information.
I love that Craig has made it such a priority to stay honest with himself. And I believe staying in that intention and that mentality, he's found healing and restoration. So I hope that it inspires you to have that same honesty with yourself for the sake of growth and maybe growth in others as well. If you enjoyed what you heard today, I invite you to check out more videos. Check out our website at arcpath.com, our social media at ARCpath. We also have an app called Circles Now. We have courses and awesome podcast sessions created by Bernard Bashura and Casey Cox. Well, thank you so much for joining us today at AHRK Encounter. I'm your host, Maha, and we'll see you next time.